Welcome to the Next Level Life podcast with Christine Corcoran. This podcast is made for the powerhouse businesswomen who are ready to ignite their fullest potential. This is where we will dive deep into the mindset breakthroughs and sprinkle in some kick up the butt motivation so you can scale your business with confidence and clarity. Whether you're craving more income, impact, or inspiration, this podcast will be your ultimate resource for all things next level. Listen in as we have authentic conversations with game-changing female entrepreneurs as we reveal the secrets on what it takes to rise and thrive. So go ahead, ignite your inner fire, and let's get you taking massive aligned action. Are you ready to elevate? Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today I want to talk to you about the identity shifts that every CEO must make. And I'm going to share with you 10 of them, and I guarantee you're going to see yourself in some of these. And I'm going to share them consecutively so that it's easy for you to kind of see where you're at and what new identity shift you may need to start leaning into. Honestly, with identity shifts, it's always like a rebirth, like a death and a rebirth. And often what prevents that new quantum leap, that new identity shift, is the resistance that we have to making change. And so I wanted to share this with you today because I thought it'd be a really powerful episode for you to lean into and start figuring out where you are at in the different identity shifts. I also want you to know that we are 9 weeks away. Can you believe this? 9 weeks away from Unstoppable Women 2026. I have such an incredible lineup of speakers coming to share with you all the new updated marketing strategies, sales strategies, public speaking strategies, copywriting strategies, AI tools and strategies. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for you to be in that room. We are curating the most epic couple of days, and I am not sharing absolutely everything. And I feel like that sometimes can affect people to buy tickets because they're like, I want to know exactly what I'm getting, which I totally get. So I'm going to share the 2-day agenda, but I also want to keep some of it special, some of it private, because I want you to be wowed. I want you to be surprised and delighted from the beautiful experience that you get at Unstoppable Women. I want you to know that each day is so beautifully curated that I guarantee you're going to walk away going, that was well worth my money. I know it is an investment to invest in days like this, but I want you to look at, like, if you're not investing in any other type of support, spending $500 on your business for the year is well worth it. Incredibly worth it, because I know you're going to get so much incredible game-changing strategies, and it's going to impact you not only psychologically, it's like you are going to walk away believing that so much more is possible and you're going to feel so much more motivated and inspired, but you're also going to have the practical strategies to put in place, okay? I'm such a big believer of making sure that you're not just sharing, that the speakers aren't just sharing this top overview or this kind of boring story that just doesn't go anywhere. I'm asking them specifically to go into the practicalities so you walk away with specific steps that you can implement. And then if you want to spend 2 days with us and be a part of the masterminding day on day 2, we're going to implement some of that, and you're also going to be able to go deeper. So we've got some incredible speakers for day 2 as well. And so MG, who is our AI strategist, will actually be sharing and doing a full hour workshop on the Friday. And then I have Riz from Found Legal. She's going to be coming along and teaching you about trademarks, but also how to build affiliates, because she's actually built 4,000. She's actually got 4,000 affiliates in her business. And I was like, I want to know more about this. How did you do this? And so she's going to be sharing a bit about that. I'm going to be taking you through some mastermind days and also help you really implement what you've learned from day 1. We'll do some further business networking, and we'll do some deeper work around your sales strategies as well. So if you really want to dive deep into it, make sure you book 2 days. There are only a few, I can't say how many by the time this episode goes out, but when I recorded this, we're already at 60% sold of the VIP ticket. So if you definitely want VIP, I would suggest you run, don't walk. There is still payment plans, so you're welcome to grab a payment plan if that makes it easier for you to invest. Absolutely grab your ticket now. All right, let's dive into today's episode. I look at these identity shifts almost like initiations, right? As we step into being the CEO of our business, there are different initiations we go through, and they create resistance and they create change. And so I want to start right from the beginning. So I'm sure that you will remember, if you're just starting out in business, or even if you're still in corporate, you might be in this phase. But if you're further along in business, you're probably going to look back on this being like, I remember being in a job, right? And at that point, you were like, I want more freedom. I want more freedom on my decisions, on my income, on my flexibility of my time. And I really have some type of purpose that I want to lean into. And so the first identity shift is really choosing freedom, right? Choosing freedom and going all in on something. Being that decision maker, backing yourself and going all in, right? That just employee to entrepreneur identity shift is the first one. Super simple. I don't really have to spend too much time here because I know that you've all been there before and you know what that feels like. The identity shift too, I honestly believe, is the hobby business into the full-time business owner. This is where we go from either being part-time or treating our business like a hobby. And even this sometimes happen when we're full-time in our business, because I have people come into my containers where they really look back on how they're spending their time in their business and they've realized that, hey, I actually have been treating it like a hobby. And so this identity shift is shifting from, I'm not going to treat it as a hobby anymore, and this has to work. I have to go all in with this, right? And so you're treating your business like it actually matters. You start looking at sales like it matters. You start focusing on your cash flow. You start focusing on building consistency, and you're backing yourself that one step further. You become really committed instead of like looking at kind of like half and half of like being 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or kind of being like, oh, I still have a backup plan if this doesn't work. You go from letting go of that backup plan and being like, I am all in. And even though this is a time where you have a lot of fear, you fear whether you're going to be able to make it work, you maybe have a lot of imposter syndrome, you feel like you don't have that safety net anymore, and that's scary as well. It's so normal. That's the initiation, right? This is where you're building the proof that you're more than capable of creating consistent income, creating income that's going to cover your lifestyle, and you're going to be full-time in that business. And so you're treating it differently. You're starting to treat that business like you're serious about it. Yeah. Do you remember that initiation? I'm sure you have moments where you remember back and being like, yeah, I remember that. I remember those mindset shifts and those identity shifts. And maybe it was even like spending time with family and friends and you telling them that you're full-time in your business now. I remember having a moment like that with my brother, and we don't stay in much touch, right? He has his own life and he's much, much older than me, and we really don't see each other much other than at family events. And I remember talking to him on the phone once, I think it was over Easter, and I wasn't heading down to Melbourne, and we were talking about something or other. And I was like, but you know, I'm full-time in my business now, right? And he was like, no, I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've been like in full-time in my business for like 6 months now. And he was like, wow, really? Like you don't have any part-time job? And I'm like, no, it's my full business. And I remember having this moment where I was like, hey, like, yeah, I have been doing this for the past 6 months full-time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm making it work. It's really working. And so that identity shift then becomes part of who you are, because you're not seeing yourself as a hobbyist, or you're not seeing yourself as being in part-time work or looking in that, scrolling on Seek kind of energy, right? And you're fully in your business. Okay, so the next one is number 3, which is really stepping from the technician or the operator to being the business owner, right? So this is where I see a lot of this shift happen, where we go from recognizing that we're spending majority of our time in the business versus on the business. And we start to notice like, hey, it's time to actually look at the business separately to what we're actually doing to earn the money and the time that we're spending in our business. This is a huge, huge shift, okay? And a lot of people don't realize this until they realize that the business side isn't working, right? They're really good at what they do and they're great with clients. And when they've got client work, they're really good. But then there's a moment where they're like, hey, I really need to be working on the business side of things, because when I look at that side, it's a bit of a schmozzle, right? Or maybe it's causing them to be like, hey, I don't have consistency and I really would like to have a lot more consistency. And so we go from thinking, oh, I've just got to keep working on more client work, to going, hang on, what do I need to work on within the business to make this work? And we go from thinking, what do I need to do today? Instead of thinking that, we go to, what does the business need right now? And that identity shift is huge. It's like so many different ways to explain it. It's like going from the technician to looking at your business as an engine that can actually run. From operator to CEO, we're kind of not really at the CEO stage yet. That's why I call it the business owner stage, right? We're that freelancer to business owner kind of stage, right? And we start going, okay, we stop thinking day to day and stop thinking short term, and we start thinking long term, right? We're like, I'm going to make this business work long term. What does the business need in order for it to thrive? And we start thinking much more in advance, right? Maybe you're at that stage right now, and that's great. That's actually a really great stage to be in, because we go from focusing too short term, we're creating short term results. And so if you can start thinking longer term and start planning longer term and being more effective in executing for long term results, that's when you start to see growth happen. So I would even describe this a little bit more like growth phase, right? So you've kind of got your startup phase or your hobbyist phase, or like, no, how would I describe it? Like part-time, you're not really full-time in your business yet. And then you go into like recognizing of treating it a little bit more seriously. And then you go into this phase where you're like, okay, it's time to make this grow. I'm not just maintaining it anymore. I'm not just here to make a bit of money to cover my living expenses. I really want to make this work. And you're ready to grow the business versus just maintain it or just, have it just tick along. Okay, the next phase, phase 4, or the next initiation, I should say, is where we start to get much busier and we start shifting from the busy business owner to doing all the things, wearing all the hats, trying to maintain everything yourself, and recognizing that you're so busy and so booked that you're like almost teetering on burnout. And you recognize that, hey, I can't do this all myself. I've got to lead this versus just be the one doing all the things. It's almost like when you think about like a boat or a ship, you have all the different people working different parts of the ship, right? So you've got the captain, and then you've got the first officers, and you've got the people working in the engine room. Like there's different members that are actually supporting the overall destination of the ship. So we want to look at, rather than wearing all the hats and doing all the roles, we start moving away from realizing that, hey, I can't do it all myself, and I shouldn't have to do it all myself, and I don't want to do it all myself. And it's time to start leading and start to captain the ship and start leading strategically. And this is where we start often documenting our SOPs. We start saying no to things. We start recognizing we've probably been saying yes to too many things. And we start protecting our calendar a little bit more. We start focusing on more high value work and start looking at like, hey, what work should I be doing and where am I most valuable in my business? And what can I start to delegate? What can I start to bring in other team members or contractors to support the growth of the business, so that I can start to possibly even look at scaling? We're not even at the scaling phase yet. We're just in that busy period where we're like, hey, I can't do all this myself. I can't even maintain all this myself, right? So you might be at stage 4 right now where you're super overwhelmed, you're busy, you're stressed, and you're like, hey, I'm still possibly even still thinking short term and trying to keep things afloat, right? This is where we do need to take a step back and start realizing, hey, I can't do it all on my own and I shouldn't do it all on my own. And it's time to be a little bit more strategic. I remember doing this with a client, actually. She was at this phase and we started looking at recognizing that she was wearing all the hats of everything. She was also recognizing that if she was sick, the business would not be able to keep moving ahead. And she was like, that's not going to work for me. She had kids and everything. So we had to look at, okay, if we were to build this business without you in it, what would that look like? What team members will we need in order for the business to keep running? What services will we offer? What clients will we need? And who do we need to service those clients? And we started to really build out more of an organization, right? And she didn't go out and hire all of them straight away, but we started to look more strategically at the business. And she realized there was so many opportunities within the business that didn't mean that she would have to do the work. And then she started to expand, and then she started hitting really big months. And it was like she went from 35K to 50K, 55K, I think, a month. And she was like, oh my God, why didn't I do this before? And so it's so key to start looking, again, being much more strategic and stepping into that leadership role. Okay, then we kind of have this next kind of shift, which I wasn't really sure where to place it, but it kind of happens in this next phase. When we start to do that, we then realize that, hey, I've got to be a leader. So you stop doing all the things and you start delegating. So this is stage 5. We go from doer to delegator. Well, I kind of feel like it's not necessarily just delegator, it's leader. You start actually leading your business and leading your team. And this is really a huge identity shift because often you're the one doing everything and you've also built it yourself. You've possibly started to document your SOPs, but maybe haven't really drawn everything out of yourself to figure out how it's going to be done really effectively. And you're going to have major lessons in this phase. I guarantee it. We all do. You possibly make the wrong hire and then you have to fire someone, which is also really uncomfortable. And we all go through that. And that's, having those difficult conversations, maybe even having difficult conversations and performance managing team members. And we are really developing our leadership skills in this phase. And usually this is the time where you literally go looking for leadership skills and learning and start reading those books and start thinking, okay, how can I do this more effectively? And learning to onboard people really effectively, learning to interview better, right? Like learning to interview better so then you don't make those mistakes again. We all have bad hires. Like honestly, I was talking to someone about this the other day and she was talking about how her first hire was real bad. And I was like, yeah, babe, all of us, we all have a bad hire. Unless you know how to hire effectively, but prior to you starting your business, you're most likely going to hire badly. And then you're going to learn your lesson and you're going to learn to know what to ask for and what to look for. So we all have that initiation. And so we're also in that phase as well as a leader. We're starting to figure out like how to separate ourselves from the emotions that our team are having, how to really recognize what we should be spending our time on. And we're going to have to also let go a little bit of control, let go a little bit of perfection, and that need to be needed, which I feel like, oh my God, I should actually spend a whole new episode on that need to be needed, because your role starts to change. And so that can feel really uncomfortable. And sometimes people get to this phase and they go, no, I don't want this anymore. And they go back. They go back to just being a solo entrepreneur with no team, or maybe one team member versus 5 or 10, right? And so that's okay. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's just recognizing like where they got to their threshold and they're like, nah, I'm going to go back. So in this phase, I just wanted to highlight this because I feel like sometimes when people get to this phase, they judge themselves so harshly because they're like, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not a good leader. I'm not good at relinquishing control. I don't like being in this part of the role. I remember speaking to someone about this actually a little while ago, and she was saying like what her role ended up becoming was something that just didn't light her up anymore. And that's what caused her to change her business, like massively change her business, because she was like, I just am bored doing these things. I don't want to be the person that does these things. And I was like, I get it. Like, I totally understand. You still have to build a business you love that you actually want to run. And so then she had to readjust her role and rehire for different people to serve the growth of the business and decide where she wanted to be spending her time. And so I always say to leaders, like, determine what part of different elements of your business do you really love doing, and keep those on your plate. Like a client at the moment, she loves the relationship building with her clients, loves it, and wants to keep in contact with her clients. I'm like, great, but that does not mean you have to do all the work for the clients. You can be across it. You can be the relationship person. You can be in touch with people, but then you delegate majority of it. And she was like, oh yeah, I could do that. So there's lots of ways to go around it, but just recognizing like through that initiation, we go from, okay, it's time to now build the team. It's time to build my leadership skills. It's time to get better at having difficult conversations and getting, relinquishing a bit of control and a bit of perfection in order for that trust to be built, in order for things to get good, because you have to recognize that for you to step into this next phase, which is really scaling, is that you're going to have to let go of that control. You're going to have to allow others to step in and do a good job, and you've got to build trust while you're doing that. The next one is shifting into the thought leader element, and it's starting to recognize, like, for your business to scale to that next level, you need to consider like where the business needs to go. So do you go into the way of the path of being the thought leader and still being the face of the brand, or do you build the brand separately from you? And so that's when we start to really look at like, what does the brand or the business need in order to scale? Because it could be you as the thought leader and positioning yourself as the thought leader more, really making sure that you're creating more content and being the marketing hub of the business. So then you can, again, increase the visibility to scale it, to increase the numbers. Or it could be going in the brand element and really building the brand. And that might be through brand associations. It might be through other ways to basically have you not be the face of the brand anymore or at all, and starting to explore like ways to build the brand, to scale the brand in massive ways. So it could be going through, building UGC, building communities, there's so many different ways there. I probably could spend a whole other episode on that as well, but I don't want to. So not right now. So what I'm saying is the next phase is deciding, okay, am I going to be the face of the business and build my thought leadership, or am I going to build the brand and focus on building the brand behind the scenes? I think at this day and age, we still need to be the face to a certain extent. Like, people want to know who they're buying from, but you can build the brand on brand values and other elements. It doesn't have to be your face as such. Okay, I think I'm up to number 6. So the next phase is going from I'm building a business for me to building a legacy, right? And you're stepping away from building it for yourself or necessarily building it for your clients. You might like have a passion for the people that you really serve, which is great, amazing. That's what I do. It's why my business exists. And we step away from, again, being self-focused, like the business is for us, and thinking about how we can actually build a legacy. So we're thinking much bigger and our decisions become much bigger. So we're thinking more about partnerships and community and licensing or real long-term impact. And we're starting to scale that business with that in mind, and it being less about us or less about the client and more about that bigger vision, that bigger legacy. That also brings about, again, a letting go and a relinquishing control to a certain extent, and starting to really go, okay, how can I bring in the right people, and we're less focused on hiring to take stuff off our plate and more thinking about hiring for the business and the legacy we're building, right? We're more likely going to be investing more in hiring more effectively, and we're more likely to, again, be making bigger decisions based on the long-term impact that we really want to make. And that comes with its own identity shift as well, because usually at that stage as well, like you have more money coming through the door, so you really focus more on wealth building, and it's kind of stepping away from revenue numbers as such and not worrying so much about that. You're more focused on profit, and you're more focused on how we're being more strategic with the growth of the business and really being conscious of where the money is flowing in and out. We're thinking about longer term investments. We're thinking about building assets. We're thinking about creating more sustainability for our business. Maybe even like stepping back a little bit more and being like, how do I create more freedom for myself and maybe for my family? And we're creating more time freedom. So it becomes then, when money's less about paying bills and more about a tool for this next level of expansion and legacy leaving. Which brings me to the last phase, which is really that CEO role where you're chief executive officer of expansion. And you're starting to realize that you don't need to look to others for answers. You're starting to realize that you've achieved so much by really understanding the business, understanding the clients, and really understanding the vision for the long-term growth of your business. And you're thinking about you're backing yourself, you're trusting yourself, you're creating your own rules. You're possibly even creating a new evolution, like new revolution, possibly within your industry. You're being seen as that thought leader in the industry, and you're stepping out and really owning your worth. You're really owning your leadership in that space as well. And I see this happen like when people almost like have that moment of what looks like overnight success. And I've seen this multiple times with like Codie Sanchez, how she came out of the blue. It looked like she came out of the blue, but it was more because she had already built so many lessons. She'd gone through all of these initiations, and then she had just decided, okay, it's time to scale en masse and to be more visible. And her expertise and her experience really shone through every piece of content she was creating. And then boom, she was like overnight doing extremely well, right? So the same with Emma Grede and how like her new podcast, her new book, Start With Yourself, and how she was on Oprah's podcast and how she's being interviewed by Oprah. And then she interviewed Oprah. We were all like, who is this person and where has she come from? And it was because she's gone through massive, massive growth initiations and built incredible businesses. But sometimes we're only seeing it on that end, right? It's like she no longer looks for other people for permission. She knows herself, she trusts herself, and she backs herself, and she's the one making the decisions. She's not looking to other people to be like, yeah, you should do that. She's like, I'm doing this. Are you going to come? Are you on board? Right? So it's this next level of CEO freedom, which is more like, and you've earned the right and you are owning it and you're leading like completely unapologetically. That's where I really look at it. It's like so unapologetic because you know yourself, you're backing yourself, and you are not questioning anything. You're just like going for it. There's still fear and doubt, like obviously on the way, like because as we're stepping into new levels of expansion, like it's so normal to have that. But there's no doubt and fear in yourself, right? There's that backing yourself and you're believing in yourself so wholeheartedly. So I hope that you really see yourself in some of these initiations, because I honestly believe like we go through this. And so wherever you're at the moment, I see you, I hear you, and I am sending all my love and I'm sending all of my support your way. And I also want you to know like it's part of the process. So trust the process, lean in, pay attention to where there's resistance, because that's usually where we need to learn and we need to grow. And we possibly are holding on to a past version of ourselves that we need to let go of. That's often the case. We've been comfortable where we're at to a certain extent, and to change or to create that next level, we're going to have to change, and that feels super uncomfortable. But it's okay. Pay attention to the resistance, lean into it, and learn to trust yourself. Every level of business asks you to grieve an old version of yourself, and that's okay. So you will go through the emotions, but just keep working through it. You are so incredibly capable, and the more that you believe you're capable, the more you'll lean through it and start to embrace those opportunities as opportunities to learn and grow. Wherever you're at in these phases, I'm proud of you, and you should be freaking proud of yourself. All right, lovely. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll speak to you really soon. Thank you for listening, and if you found any value out of this episode, make sure you hit the follow button so you get access to the episodes as soon as they are live, and make sure you come hang out with me on Instagram. You can find me at ChristineCorcoran_coach. Have an incredible week.